It's always good to have more things to measure things with than too little. Just gonna keep these here and not tell anyone that I have them there. Any guesses what these little ghosts are? Earlier this year, I shared with you a video where I went through my notions bag, organizing it at the same time. I actually do have another notions bag as well, and we're gonna go take a look at the content of that. These are tools that I don't use every day or often at all, but that I still like to keep around or have. At the end of this video, I'll also share what, in my opinion, are the essential notions for knitters and why. Before we dive into the notions bag, I just want to share a little tool that I absolutely love, and it's my needle gauge. Now this one is owl shaped, and I kind of like that it's cute, but any needle gauge is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion. I'm quite dutiful at returning my needles back to the sort of needle jar that I have for them, and that's where this guy lives. But I rarely take the time to find the correct sleeve. I just kind of shove them in there. So whenever I'm looking for certain needles, I need to use this one to see if I'm picking the correct ones or not. And I just honestly wouldn't know what to do if I didn't have one. So unless you're the kind of person who has their needles very, very organized, I think you can make your life a lot easier with the help of a needle gauge. All right then, so what do I have in my second non-everyday, how do you say that, notions bag? I haven't looked into this, so you're gonna get my full and honest reactions. Let's go with this one first, as it's sticking out, and I think we know what it is. So this is a gauge or sort of gauge swatch measuring tool. It also has a needle gauge there, so very practical if you don't have anything else. I don't use this. I very rarely use this to measure my gauge. I just take my wooden ruler and go rows, or sorry, stitches and rows. I think this could be more practical, but this one stands, this one is like on top of my desk in a drawer, and this is in the cupboard in this notions bag. But I'm keeping it around because you never know, and it's always good to have more things to measure things with than too little, I think. And speaking of which, I see that I have another tool for that. This one is the recommended 10 centimeters square or 4 inches, and this one is half of that, so 5 centimeters and 5 inches. This one I have used more often because, sorry, 5 centimeters and 2 inches. What did I say? Because sometimes my gauges, sometimes my swatches just aren't big enough. But to be honest, it's this wooden ruler. That's a difficult word. This wooden ruler. It's kind of cute as well. It has bunnies in there, and I love bunnies and hares. So I can definitely say that I don't need any more needle gauges or tools for measuring my swatches, but I'm keeping those around. Then this one does see some action. So this is quite a large stitch holder. I have smaller ones that I keep in the Everyday Notions bag, but this one is, I think this is too large for that bag, so I'm keeping it here. Plus, if I have a large amount of stitches, I'd rather put them on waste yarn or than those cables that hold needles that you can just tie around. I'll talk about them more in the first Notions bag video. But yeah, this one can be handy. So since I have it, I'm keeping it. And then there's the sweater stone. So this is for taking care of your knits and not for knitting per se. And I'm keeping it in the original box because it's really kind of scratchy. I don't like the feel of this material, so I don't want it scratching anything else. So I'm keeping it in the box that it came in. So this is just a sort of porous stone that you can brush your knitting with, and it picks up the extra lengths or the flyaway fibers. So if you have sweaters that pill, for example, you could scratch the pilled parts away with this and be left with a smooth, new looking knit. Now let's see. So this is called Sweater Stone, and I think that's also the company name. Yeah, sweaterstone.com. I don't remember where I've picked this up, but I'm sure a lot of local yarn stores or online yarn stores have this or versions of this. I know there's also sort of a pill comb and a brush that you can use, but this is what I have. And yes, I do use it occasionally if the need arises. Next, these are actually quite useful, but for some reason I just never got into the habit of using them. So these are for your DPNs. These can hold your stitches. So assume that this is a set of DPNs attached to your knitting. You just kind of push the ends in, and this makes sure that the needles stay in place and your stitches don't unravel if you throw it in your bag. That's something that happens with DPNs for me quite often, so I really don't know why this one is here and I'm not using it. Do you use things like this? I know there are different kinds. This is one version. I have a spare pair of my beloved orange scissors, Fiskars scissors. So I have one pair that's in my everyday bag, and if you watch that video, you know that I had lost the scissors and had to go find them. So it's good that I have a spare pair. To be honest, these feel, I can just by holding it from the ends, I can feel that it's in a much better shape than the pair that I use every day. So this one hasn't been used that much, so they're a lot sharper. But the one that I have in the other bag is still very good and very functional. So I'm just gonna keep these here and not tell anyone that I have them there so that they don't get lost. And I always have a pair at hand. Okay, curious. So these, any guesses what these little ghosts are? These are for making yarn bobbins. So if you do intarsia or any kind of method where you just need a little amount of something that you're not carrying along. So if you do color work where you're not carrying the yarns together, but just kind of work something, for example, in a vertical line. You just knit with this one and leave it hanging and then continue with your main yarn, or when working with intarsia. So I've got a set of these. I don't do that much color work, though I did just design a hat, color work hat. But I have used these every now and then, and since I have purchased these at one point, I'm gonna keep these. You don't, even if you do color work or feel that you occasionally would use something like this, you can just use cardboard. This isn't cardboard, but I'm just using an example. So you could just use a cardboard, make a square from it with a tiny notch and use that as your bobbin. So definitely not something you need to spend money on, but just to let you know that there are cute versions of it out there as well. Okay, I see. I also have a very tiny stitch holder that is here, and this one is so stiff and pristine that I don't think I've used this a lot. But again, it's something that could be functional, doesn't take up much room, even though I like to be sort of minimalist and just keep things that I need. I think those are something that I'm gonna still kind of store back into here. And then there's something that I used especially back when I was doing spinning. It was quite a short-lived phase, maybe a couple of years. But this is wraps per inch. So this gap here is 1 inch. And you take your yarn and you wrap it around here. You're going to wrap it around until it fills the whole inch. And then you can count how many wraps fit into that 1 inch. And then that can help you gauge the weight of the yarn. And this is something that you could use as a keyring. I think it's kind of like a guitar, maybe. I don't know. But again, it's something that can come in handy, so it's good to have it here. Of course, if you have a wooden ruler, for example, with an inches instead of centimeters, you can wrap your yarn around that one. But this just makes it a bit easier. Also good if you buy farm yarns that maybe just don't have the meterage shown. I've seen skeins like that, so it just says this weighs 120 grams. But you don't know how much yarn there is. You can, of course, use visual aids to help you, but this one can help you be more sure of what you're dealing with. So that is it. My bag is now empty. I'm not sure if I was expecting to find things that I would like to get rid of, but I think these are all things that will go back in my bag here. I could maybe do the method that you use with clothes sometimes, that I put a little note saying when was the last time I used it, and if I haven't used it in years, then I could get rid of it. But to be honest, if it fits in this bag, I think it's good to keep. Okay, so what are the notions that I think are essential to knitters? Now I understand that these lists might vary, but here are my recommendations and things that are essential to me. A good pair of scissors. I'm not getting paid to promote Fiskars, so maybe I should. But yes, these are my trusted pair. You may have your own trusted pair, just that they're sharp and snap the yarn in half and are small. Then that's good. I know that there are like embroidery scissors that are even smaller, but these are just right, kind of small. They are easy to hold, fit my hand, well cut the yarn, and fit into most project or notions pouches. And the edges themselves aren't like, you can't stab anything with them, so they're safe. Then a tape measure. This is what you use for both checking your gauge, but also checking your measurements when you're blocking your nets, for example, or the patterns. Usually if you're knitting sweaters, the pattern might say that knit until 20 inches or something like that. So you need something to measure with. Now, like I said, I use a wooden ruler for gauge watches, but for longer measurements, I like to use a tape measure. And this is really embarrassing, but mine was so well worn that the top end kind of snapped off, and it starts from 9 centimeters, 3.5 something inches. And I think it was over a year ago that I asked for recommendations for tape measures, and I still haven't gotten around to going to a fabric store that would have good, inexpensive tape measures, but I guess I'm kind of attached to my little one. When I use the centimeters, I just need to make sure I start from the 10 and then take 10 out from the final measurement. And now that I've shared this here and it's really embarrassing, I hope that the next time someone asks me about my tape measure, I will have a brand new, more functional one. But whatever works for you, just have something to measure your knits with. And then the one that I started this video with, the needle gauge. It can be like this, or it can be in conjunction with your tape measure or your gauge measurer, or whatever form they come in. I've seen some really, really cute needle gauges, but since I already have one, I'm not going to replace this. And then stitch markers. During a recent project, I just poured a bit into this little bowl here. The stitch markers don't need to be fancy. I've got these kind of rings, teardrops. I think these are my favorite. And then I've got a few that have dangly bits to them. But one good and inexpensive way to use are these kind of light bulb or bubble shaped safety pins. And these are also good because you can open them and use them as lockable markers as well. So quite often you attach the stitch marker to the needle and just slip it whenever you come across it, but sometimes you need to mark specific stitches and keep on knitting. So these function for both. You can put them on the needle or on the stitch. So highly recommend those. And lastly, you need a pen or a pencil and a bit of paper. There's always something, even if, for me as a designer, this is of course essential, but I think for knitters, just in general, you can mark quickly where you left off, how many stitches, how many times you've done your sleeve decreases, how many rows you have done from the pattern repeat or whatever. It is always just something that is good to quickly note down. So have a little piece of paper and a working pen or a pencil in your notions bag or next to your knitting nook. And then, of course, something that I do use quite often, and especially if you're working on raglan sweaters, you quite often need to leave stitches on hold. So just something to use for that are these kind of metallic stitch holders, plastic stitch holders, or like I said, I have those cable-y things that are just like your knitting needle cable, but then you can tie it up. So it's kind of really soft and bendy. But that's not something you need to go out and buy. You can use a piece of smooth scrap yarn for that as well. So just have something like that on hand as well, especially if you're knitting sweaters or other garments where you need to put stitches and hold. Those are the kind of the rest of the notions and what are, in my opinion, the essential notions. If you think there's something that I've missed or something that you're curious that I don't have or haven't mentioned in this or my previous video, I'd love to know, because I know that just as with everything, people are coming up with new inventions. Maybe there's something I haven't even heard of yet, and that could be really useful or just fun to have. So let me know in the comments. Also, I would like to know if you agree with my list of essential notions. Is there something that I've missed or something you would add or leave out? Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you found this useful. Please give a like, thumbs up, subscribe, and yeah, let's chat more in the comments. I will see you soon again.